Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Peter Llewellyn. I run the services at Medcomms, networking.com. So information, resources, activities, and so on for people who work in and around Medcomms across the globe, by which I mean people who work in and around medical communications, medical education, medical publishing, and the associated businesses. So take a look at medcommsnetworking.com for what's going on. You'll find resources in various other websites like NetworkPharma TV, for instance, hundreds of videos, many of which have been recorded from webinars like this. So there's plenty to go and have a look at if you're not familiar with it already. Today, absolutely delighted to have the guys from IPG Health and from the HCA talking about the CPD basically in and around Medcomms. I'm not going to steal their thunder. We've got a presentation and Q&A. People in the audience, please use the text boxes to send in some questions, observations along the way. We'll build that into the Q&A, but we're going to start by hearing from the guys, a little bit of a presentation, but we're going to start from with Caroline, I think. Caroline, over to you.
Thank you, Peter. Hi, everybody. I'm Caroline Smith. I'm the Executive Director for Talent for IPG. And what that means in reality, for somebody in America that decided to give me that job title, what that means in reality is that I work in HR. I'm the HR lead for the IPG Health European businesses, but 50% of my time I'm dedicated to IPG Health Medical Communications. I've worked in that business for 20 plus years. We stopped counting after 20. I think that's what everybody agrees who's reached that level. So a long time, a real passion for talent acquisition, getting that right, and a passion for people development and staff retention. I guess hence my participation in today's panel. So great to be with you all. Thanks for the invite, Peter. Really appreciate it. Just going to hand over to Mike now, who will introduce himself, and then he'll pass on to Rebecca.
Hi, I'm Mike Dixon. I'm the Chief Executive of the Healthcare Communications Association. You probably do know the Healthcare Communications Association, but Peter just said I gave you a bit of background. We are the leading professional association representing and championing all those who work in healthcare communications. We're a not-for-profit organisation. Our membership comprises in-house teams, agencies, third sectors, and any individuals working in national, global healthcare communications across actually quite a diverse sort of business sectors. So everything from Medcomms through brands, PR, public affairs, the full mix of the sort of communications discipline. Our mission very much is to proactively represent, support those in global, regional, and local healthcare communications roles. And there's probably 4 key areas that we focus on. That's driving best practice and quality standards, providing patient and professional development support, offering networking and mentoring opportunities, and also coordinating business intelligence opportunities and sharing knowledge. You know, the together is better type philosophy. So that's probably for the HCA. And obviously, I'm delighted to be here with the IPG Health team today, talking about CPD, because we're going to talk about how the HCA has launched, our CP standards a couple of years ago, but how organisations like IPG Health in particular have really embraced that and doing an incredible job with their teams, embedding continuing professional development as a key part of their ongoing development. So thank you for inviting me.
Good afternoon, as it now is, everybody. I'm Rebecca Douglas. I'm Group Programme Director for Talent here at IPG Health Medical Communications. I work closely with Caroline to lead some of our professional development opportunities here at IPG Health Medcomms, but I also work with Mike as a member of the Professional Development Committee for the HCA. I'm going to talk to you in a little while about Northstar, which is a CPD initiative that we've launched here at IPG Health Medcomms at the start of this year, that's specifically focused on experienced talent. So delighted to be here today. I'll pass back to you, Caroline.
Thanks, Rebecca. Appreciate it. So as Peter said, it's quite an informal session. I'm just going to set things up and talk to you about some of my experience in creating programs and the reasons why we did it, and in the importance of CPD. Very much happy to answer any questions, take any comments at the end of the presentations today. So in medical communications, we're all in a privileged position, really, ultimately working in an industry that's going to positively impact patient outcomes. But within that industry, it's important that we evolve, not only to survive, but also to ensure that as an industry, as medical communications, that we thrive. But what if instead of evolution, we can nudge more towards revolution rather than look at change? What if we push to transform? And, you know, the ability to do this, to push on, to unearth this innovation, lies within the skill base of our talent and their appetite to push on to reach those new heights. A while back, years ago actually, I did an exit interview with somebody who was leaving our business, and I always prepared for the exit interview, so I just had a bit of background on the person that was leaving. So this individual had recently been promoted from medical writer to senior writer. I don't know, you might even be on the call today. If you are, I apologize that you are one of my anecdotes. So anyway, recently been promoted medical writer to senior writer, and one of the reasons they gave me for leaving was that they had had no training in the last 12 months. So I scratched my head a bit. Okay, no training in the last 12 months. And I challenged back and said, you've just been promoted from medical writer to senior writer. How did that promotion come about if you've had no training, no input from the business? So we had that conversation. So safe to say I learned a lot that day. Perhaps not to challenge quite so much in exit interviews, because what's the point? People are on the way out at that point. But more importantly than that conversation, it planted a seed in my mind, and that seed eventually grew into our 2 development programs that we now run across IPG Health Medical Communications. So it was quite a pivotal moment for me. I knew that we were investing in people, but we had to be seen to be investing in people, and we had to be doing that consistently across our entire medical communications network. And if we were going to do that, we should do it in a way that was best in class, first in class. That was the standard that we should set. So for now, you know, we've launched our entry-level program, which is Fuel Future Experts and Leaders. We've also launched a program for experienced talent, and that's Northstar. Rebecca will talk to you about that a bit later on in today's meeting. So lots of super talented people have worked with me as executive sponsor to bring that to life and make those programs a reality. Massive thank you to all of those for doing that. My mantra for a long time had been careers, not jobs. And, you know, in my role, I was in a privileged position to deliver on that and make that happen. Our talent acquisition team have a super clear brief that they should hire people who have a curiosity to learn, and they should hire people with an innate desire to fulfill their inherent potential. People in our industry, they absolutely want to be challenged. They want to develop, they want to grow, they want to contribute to the success of the businesses that they work for, the industry that they're in. And I truly believe that as a business, we're responsible for providing the infrastructure to enable that development. We're responsible for harvesting those ideas and harvesting that collective energy to drive the business forward. So we're responsible for creating a level playing field where every voice is heard and everyone can fly. So we promise careers, not jobs. And I mean careers in terms of career pathways, people moving up career pathway ladders or moving across them. But I also mean careers in terms of job enhancement. So people working in different therapy areas, working with different clients, working different project types, offering people opportunity ultimately. So we understand the importance of continuous professional development. It's easy to grasp the concept of it, but maybe driving that learning culture and delivering against that is difficult, it's a bit more tricky, but it's not impossible. So, you know, I believe as a business, we're there with our first iteration of that in terms of our talent development programs, but we're never finished. We don't stop. We'll move to version 2.0, 3.0, etc. Pushing for more revolution rather than evolution, transformation over change. Is this possible? Well, maybe, but maybe not driving it from the boardroom, but from our entry-level talent, from the dedicated omnichannel account manager who has that crazy idea, from the medical director who suggests something totally left field to the creative team. Maybe that's where it comes from. And perhaps version 2.0 starts, first of all, with a little bit more listening. So to help ground our programs and add rigor to our learning philosophy, we have aligned with the HCA standard. The HCA standard brings an integrity to our development approach. It's a badge of honor, if you like, to reward the endeavors of those in the program. And to finish my opening today, I'll just pose a question, first of all, to myself and to all of you in leadership roles on the call. Where are we drawing our energy from? Where are we looking to for fresh ideas? Who are we allowing to challenge us? If you are just starting out in the industry or at that mid-level point, I would encourage you all to find your voice and find that leader who will listen to you. Bother people, shout up for opportunities, get involved, expose yourself to absolutely as much as possible. You are the future experts and leaders in this industry, and you could be that person who starts the revolution. So from a revolutionary pretender to an actual revolutionary, I'm going to hand over to Mike now. No pressure, Mike. Thanks for picking up the mantle and carrying on.
I love that, Caroline. That's great. I'm inspired by that. You talked about the fact careers, not jobs, and that's exactly the philosophy that the HCA wants to present on a sector basis. In a sense, you've just articulated what for your organisation, what we want to articulate for the whole sector, for people in the sector, but also for those newly coming in the sector. And I think as a profession, all of you sat up there see yourselves as professionals. I see myself as a professional. I worked in the sector for years. But as a sector, we don't actually always act like a profession. We tend to forget some of the principles of what professional careers do. I think one of those fundamentals that we spotted a couple of years ago was the fact that any profession, you look at lawyers, accountants, even the people we interact with the most, doctors and nurses, CPD is fundamental part of that profession. And I think CPD is actually a fundamental requirement for any progressive profession. And although it was happening, there was no sort of consistency or standard set for CPD. So that is why we set out to put a sort of line in the sand in a way, a standard for CPD within healthcare communications. So CPD itself is important because it's an important fundamental to a profession. But why have a standard? Why is a standard important within that? So I think having a standard is important because I think it gives a clear guidance on what is the minimum requirement. And I use the word minimum and emphasize it. That's really important. It's not about you just get there. What's the minimum that every practitioner working in our profession should be spending or effort spending on continuing professional development every year? So that's one important part of why we set the standard. It's also important for the reasons that Karen said we've just been talking about. It's important to demonstrate as a sector, we are supporting growth and development. That's part of why we want people to come here, because they see us as a sector that will help them grow in their roles, continue in their roles, and develop in their roles. It also helps with things like inclusivity, because it sets clear expectations for everybody, whatever background you're from, wherever you're from, to what is expected for you working in our sector in terms of your continued learning and development. I think it also provides that common framework, because we are quite spread out in disciplines. When we're talking about healthcare communications as a whole, not just Medcomms. Medcomms is an important part of that, but there's also brand comms, there's PR, there's public affairs. We're all communicating, supporting slightly different things. So it gives some common framework to that learning. So we're all sort of working to the same standards, the same levels. So that's why we set out the standards a couple of years ago. And that's why we're pleased to see organizations like IPG Health embrace them so much within their own internal programs. So that's about the sector, but what's more important, what about you as an individual? How does it really help you as a practitioner in this sector? Well, I think, it allows you to grow in your profession, and it allows you, good CPD should support your success, and that allows you to help shape your future as well. Your future, if you work for an organization, there's an element of the fact that you are being shaped to develop the organization how they want to shape you. But to be honest, CPD allows you to also think about what you need to develop and grow in for where you may want to be, if that doesn't tie up with where your current organization is. If you want to start a different avenue, a different discipline or something. So CPD allows you to think about how you're going to progress in your own career as much as how you're going to work with employees to progress in your current role. The second bullet point there, or sorry, just go back a minute, I think is a really important one, because a lot of people see a CPD as about my next step, my next role. But we are in an ever-changing environment in healthcare communications. And actually, to stay competent in our role, we should all be doing at least the minimum standard of CPD annually. And if we're not, I think we have to question ourselves to whether we are actually ensuring we're staying competent in our role. So CPD is about maintaining our competency in our roles as much as it is about thinking how we develop and grow for the future. I think that's a really important thing to emphasize. I think sometimes that bit gets a bit lost when we talk about CPD. Sorry, Rebecca, please go to the next slide now. So what do? We set out to create the standard to try and encourage the sector to work to a common standard for CPD. And to do that, the first thing we did was actually to take a step back and look at all the other professions that we see that use CPD and understand what they were doing, learning from it, taking the best bits and learning from the bad bits. And so we're thinking about, again, as I said earlier, things like legal profession, accountancy, medical profession. And that's how we came up with our standards. So it wasn't just figures or ideas picked out of the air. We really did try and actually learn from others. And that, I don't apologize for that at all, because I think that's the way we should be doing, is about making sure that we are aligned with other professionals in different sectors. And this is the standard you can see on the screen now that we came up with. And I will talk through each of these bits bit by bit. So the first, the headline, I guess, is that the recommendation is that you do a minimum of 32 CPD points annually. And if you equate one CPD point to 1 hour of either learning or reflection, that gives you an idea. So 32 hours, which actually isn't much. That's not much. You start dividing them up by quarters. It's not actually a large amount of physical time. It's the minimum. That's what we think everybody should be doing as a minimum. What we would like and expect, really, and I'm sure it would be that you do more than that a year. And in reality, you probably are. And I'll come back to that point in a minute. There are some sub-points to that 32 hours. The first is that greater than 3 points should come from ethics and codes of practice. And that's because we do work in an ethical environment. And talking about staying competent for our roles, we do annually need to make sure we are up to date with new regulations, new changes, and that sort of thing. So we think it's perfectly reasonable that at least 3 hours of those 32 should be spent on those areas of ethics and code of practice. And that's quite broad. That doesn't mean to say you have to do an API code of practice course or an FBA code of practice course. It is about ethics, ethical considerations, compliance considerations would all fit under that greater than 3 points. The other aspect of it is that greater than 6 points come from structured learning. Now, what do we mean by structured learning? Structured learning is where it's perhaps a course, maybe your organization's organizing a course in-house. It doesn't have to be a physical face-to-face. It can be online course or one-to-one coaching or training. But it's where something has been developed as a learning process, as a learning activity, compared to CPD comes from perhaps reading a journal or attending a general conference, or actually just on-the-job learning. So that's the difference between structured learning, where it's whatever you're doing has been developed and created to be a learning process. And the bottom right is almost preempting a question which always gets asked is, oh, well, hang on, I'm not a member of the HCA and I don't attend HCA courses. This is not about the HCA. This is about our sector. You should be doing this. CPD points can come from anywhere. You may never come anywhere near the HCA and our work, our courses. I hope you do, because there's some great stuff there, which I know a lot of people benefit from. But the point is that these points come from HCA accredited stuff, non-HCA accredited stuff. It's learning from all walks and areas of life. Go to the next slide, please. Right now. So I've sort of come on to this. So what counts as CPD? Basically anything. Anything that's generally helping you learn, maintain your competency, or develop is technically CPD. So it might be, you know, it may be actually doing this, some things like, perhaps if you're writing the first time you're writing ever had to write an abstract, that's a learning experience and would count as CPD. It could be you're doing some group work. It could be you're even doing some volunteering pro bono work in a related area. All these things, if they're right for your personal development, your personal learning, or maintaining your skills you need to do your role, that counts as CPD. But what really turns it from being just an activity to a proper CPD activity is that the reflection and the learnings you take away, how it's going to change your daily practice. So you can read a journal. Yeah, you read a journal. That only really becomes a CPD if you've done that reflection on what you learned from that and you considered how that's going to, what might change in your practice, or how that may just continue what you're doing in practice, but with that knowledge and basis behind you. So that's what turns any of these initiatives, anything you do, into CPD, is actually that reflection time and understanding how that may change what you do on a daily basis. The other important thing is you need to document it. I loved Caroline's little anecdote earlier about, you know, the person that felt they hadn't had learning, the possible they have. But similarly, you as an individual might want to be able to show that you've done this time and spent this time and you have invested in your development, either through attending the courses your employers put you on, or perhaps just in your own time, your own learning. Make sure you document it and can show it, because that's an important part of CPD as well for yourself, but also so us as a sector can show we're doing great work, and that encourages your new colleagues to come in that are higher quality and come into the sector because they want to become into a sector that's progressive and growing. So I'm not going to spend much time on what the HCA has to help with that, but there is a free for all platform which you can access via the URL mycpd.healthcare that you can record your CPD. It's very simple to use, really easy to use. You just go in, you log what you've done. There's a couple of clear boxes that guide you into turn about how you reflect on it and take away learnings from it. It then saves it, records it. And should you wish, once you've reached that standard on an annual basis, you can submit that to us by your manager and be actually properly certified that you've reached those standards every year. And you can see the little logo at the bottom of the screen there. You're then entitled to put that logo on, perhaps your sign off, or perhaps raise it, you know, that you've achieved that standard, your next appraisal or PDA, first development plan sort of review within your organization. But that's also a way that for you to show what you've achieved, but also for us as a sector to show that we are doing that as a sector as well. So I hope very quickly I've captured how we created the standard, why we created the standard, what the standard is for you to now engage with if you're not already, and the importance of you doing that, but also how you can access free that platform to actually record that and make it easy for you to record what you're doing. So on that point, I'm going to hand over to Rebecca to talk about how they've taken that and integrated it into all the development work they're doing at IPG Health Medcomms.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, so as Mike said, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Northstar, which is our CPD initiative for experienced talent. And we'll kind of use it as a case study to demonstrate how we're practically implementing some of the philosophies and threads of thought that Caroline and Mike have just talked about. So Northstar is our initiative for experienced talent. Quite rightly, within the industry over the last 5, 6, 7 years has been a focus on entry level, which is fantastic. And we've also had a focus on entry level. We've brought over 200 people in to our business via Fuel. But what we wanted to do with Northstar was to really ensure that we're maintaining a momentum and a focus on CPD after Fuel, when people have decided that they want to stay in the industry and they are continuing to grow and develop. It's a really critical time. We currently have over 300 people engaging with Northstar, and this slide shows the job roles that they're in, so you can see the kind of levels that are included. As you can imagine, we had lots of discussions around who we should include in Northstar, and we were very deliberate and continue to be very deliberate in our efforts to make Northstar fully inclusive. Because as Caroline said, we really strongly believe that we should be investing in CPD opportunities for all of our talent within Medcomms. which is why anyone within these roles is automatically included in Northstar. We don't have an application process for it. And that's kind of that philosophy that Mike talked about in terms of being fully inclusive, in terms of their certification. You know, you don't need to be a member organisation of the HCA to tap into that. And also actually how Peter's always approached NetworkPharma, which is to make the sessions fully inclusive for everybody. But that investment in CPD is really two ways. As a business, we invest in the infrastructure and the programs and the materials, but there is really an expectation that people also engage in their own CPD. And there's an expectation from us as a business that the people that are in these job roles engage with Northstar. We really regard CPD as a need to have and not a nice to have. So as you can imagine, there were lots of aims when we first started talking about Northstar, and we've kind of maintained those aims and evolved them as we've evolved the programme. So firstly, we really wanted to emphasise that CPD is fundamental to how we grow and evolve as individuals, as a business, and also as an industry. By nurturing a focus on CPD, we want to provide a framework through which we're ensuring that our talented people, and we've got so many talented people, have the opportunity to align activities to their own professional goals and use Northstar to help them fulfill their potential. We really wanted to emphasise through Northstar that development is achieved, as Mike said, through seizing a really wide range of opportunities. And so that's why we base Northstar and actually Fuel 2 on a 70-20-10 framework. So 70% of our learning comes from stretch and innovation and development on the job. 20% is about learning from others through mentoring and coaching and feedback and shadowing. And 10% is dedicated to those formal training opportunities, which are very important as well. So with Northstar, we want to provide a framework that people can customise to their own development goals, because we really recognise that we're all individuals with different strength profiles. And so any initiative that you put into place has to promote CPD that's grounded in that ethos. We also agree with the HCA in terms of the philosophy of encouraging a culture of reflective learning. We see that as being really critical for individuals, for our teams, and for our industry. And we want to make sure that people are working in an environment where when things go really well, as they often do, we're sharing those learnings within our teams so that we're all improving incrementally. But also when things don't go as well first time as we wanted them to, that we acknowledge that we learn from it, that we move on and adapt our approach next time, and that we are working in an environment that encourages people to kind of push those boundaries in innovation. And finally, all of those aims kind of culminate in our overall outward looking goal of providing really excellence within our industry and for our clients. So I've already mentioned 70-20-10 as our talent development framework, and through Northstar we're providing a range of development opportunities at different levels, because there's lots of different people included in Northstar, but in all three of these formats. Obviously, structured or formal learning is important, and we've worked really hard to provide really high quality, targeted formal training opportunities. But we really want, as Caroline said, to alter the dial in terms of what people recognise as development opportunities, which is why we provide lots of suggestions around on the job development and learning from others too. And as Mike has already said, critically, whatever the activity, we've got to be packaging it up with reflective learning. That's really important. So we divided the activity suggestions in Northstar up to focus on 6 key competencies that we think are really integral to success within Medcomms. We all have different strength profiles. So someone who is really brilliant at strategy and decision making, and we all know those people, they might not be quite so strong in leadership or in delegation. What we want for people to use Northstar as a framework to progress within all 6 competencies, regardless of whether it's a particular strength for them or whether it's a particular development need. And it's really fine for people to be at different places in the journey for different competencies, because our differences and what makes us unique also makes us really strong as a team, bringing together those complementary skill sets. So we launched Northstar at the beginning of this year, and there's been lots of insights and learnings along the way. So we've just listed out a few of our biggest ones here. Firstly, any development initiative needs to be resourced appropriately. This is a really busy industry that we all work in. Our teams are really focused on delivery. We've invested in a dedicated team that includes 11 development directors, 9 of whom are aligned to specific agencies and can support with that on-the-job development, as well as helping to shape the formal training opportunities. Secondly, development is really a living initiative, and I can't stress that enough really. With any programme or initiative, it's really important to recognise that launch is just getting to the start block. We've listened to feedback, we've shaped, we've crafted Northstar as the years progressed, and we're constantly looking for new ways with Northstar, but also with Fuel, to really improve what we're doing and keep our talented people at the forefront of the industry. Thirdly, it's okay to take it in stages. We didn't have all the content ready at the start of the year. We prioritised what we thought was the most important stuff, and we've built on it as the years progressed. And finally, this is a really busy industry, so it's critical to communicate effectively and efficiently with people, particularly at this experienced talent level. We try to align communications with what we know about current business dynamics. If you want people to engage in an initiative, then you've got to make it relevant to them. So tell them what they're going to get out of it. So with that, I will stop talking, Peter, and I will hand over to you for questions.
Okay, great. Thanks, guys. Members of the audience, please do join in and ask some questions. You've got a couple of text boxes there. You've got a chat box. You've also got a Q&A box. So do feed some questions in. We've got a few which we'll cover off. I want to pin you down a bit on the practicalities, and I tend to get a bit bogged down in practicalities in a conversation like this, and people may want to go in a different direction. But I mean, the concept, great. I'm personally very, I'm publicly very supportive of initiatives like this. Anything to do with ongoing training and career development, etc. Yada 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 yada. I'm not quite getting what happens in practice here. And maybe Rebecca, can I pin you down a little bit more? I mean, we've heard from Mike about the principles of I think it was 30 odd points a year, and 1 point equals an hour. I'd like to ask Mike a little bit more about how that's actually assessed, I must admit. But Rebecca, you've talked about your program in very broad terms. How do you go about allocating points? Do you go about allocating points? Are you saying that someone who goes through a year's worth of Northstar gets a year's worth of points? Is it as straightforward as that? How does it get measured, tracked, verified, etc.? I just want a bit more detail of the practicalities, and I'll start with Rebecca, but Mike, I'd be interested in some more of the practicalities from the broader point of view. Rebecca, can you help me on that one?
Yeah, of course I can. So we have a really wide range of things that are included in Northstar. So there's loads of workshops, which is the formal training, and that's the easy bit to kind of put a points value on, if you like, because if people do an hour's worth of training, perhaps they do half an hour's prep for it afterwards. There's always follow-up with line managers, etc. afterwards. So they would go to that before they go. We ask them, we send out some pre-work and we ask them to tell us what their objectives are. They then go, they spend the hour and a half training, and then afterwards they reflect. So they would then go onto the HCA portal and they would put that time in, and that would be like 1.5 points for that session. But there are some other things as well. So for example, if somebody was running an ad board for the first time, as an example, it may be that they sit down with their line manager first and say, this is the first time that I've run an ad board. What actually for my own development do I want to get out of this? What skills do I need to work on, etc., etc. and that hour of mentoring or whatever, we would expect that process to be included in reflective learning as well. So that's an example of where obviously not all of the on the job billing time would go into CPD, but that thinking about their own development, that sitting down, working out their own goals and how that aligns to the on the job development very much would, because that's absolute CPD. So that's kind of some practicalities. And we do, so we put in to each skill set lots of suggestions around on the job. We have a structured document for that. So for example, if you're in an editorial role, then it might be that we're asking people to, somebody might be, for example, working on a particular process that we've got. They might be looking to improve that process, and as part of their own development, they might be presenting back to the team on that. How did we do that? So all of that counts as CPD, and that would be included in our on the job suggestions document. Does that make sense?
So in IPG Health terms, if I'm working for you and going through the system, I could end up with any number of points at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Or is there some sort of you're not somehow ensuring that I reach the 32 that Mike suggested as a goal? It's not quite as prescriptive as that, or
well, we would
I can
expect
just do as
people
much as
to
I
be,
like.
yeah, they can do as much as they need to do to stay competent and push themselves on in their role. So 32 hours.
And that's worked out between me and my manager, basically. And so there's sort of the guide rails in there, sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So 32 hours should be more than achievable within a 12-month period, and they'll track it themselves as they go through, and their development director will sit down and track it with them as well. So yeah, but if they ended up doing 50 because there's been a focus on something during the year, then that's fine too.
That's fine.
It's just
Caroline, sorry,
important
you're
to
trying to say
emphasize.
something, Caroline.
Yeah, it's just important to emphasize here that most of that time will be on the job time. So it's still billable time to clients. Obviously some of it's not going to if you're attending workshops and stuff like that, but that's why it's all achievable within the day job, is because it's built around that on the job learning and reflective learning model. So so it's great that all of that links to points within the HCA standard.
Okay, and practically speaking, I'm imagining I'm working for you. I'm in this role where I'm going through the system, and me and my manager are working out what I need to do. And basically, as I do all those hours, I'm clocking it in the HCA portal, and then at the end of the year, and maybe this is where Mike needs to come in, but from an IPGH point of view, at the end of the year, if I'm understanding correctly, me and my manager can apply to the HCA to say, we've done our 32, because in that instance I have to do my 32, and therefore I can be officially confirmed by the HCA as someone that's done that, and then I can use the logo. You're nodding at me, so I mean, is that just basically the sense of it?
Yeah, so it goes, I think the important thing is that it goes back to the line manager. So we would have expected the line manager to have been having these conversations as the years progressed. We actually have a separate document as well that's a reflective learning action plan. We would have expected people to have been documenting their CPD as they go through the year. But at the end, it gets presented as a package almost to the line manager, and it says, like, these are the things that your line report has said they've done as CPD this year. Can you verify them? These are their reflections, etc., etc. So it goes back to the line manager to verify. Mike, do you want to add anything there? Sorry.
I was going to say, and then so pick it up, Mike, at your end. What's happening there?
Okay, could I actually, if you don't mind, before I answer that, because I've seen lots. I was looking at Q&A, and there's lots of freelancers asking, and to keep this.
I was going to come back to that, but go on then, address that. Go on.
Just keep it relevant for them. So, the answer to everybody keeps asking, as a freelancer, yes, this is for you as well. And I'll explain why in a minute when we have that discussion. But stay tuned, because very much, I think as a freelancer, if I was a freelancer, I would certainly want to be able to show that I've done my CPD, because I think it's a stamp of honour to go when you're looking for business and stuff. So yes, and the other question that's come up a bit of time is, do I have to be an HCA member? No, we've made this platform, we've made this whole. For the HCA, this is us helping shape the sector. Therefore, we can't say it's HCA members only, because then that's cliquey. It's So the platform, even recording it and the certification, is all free to everybody that works in healthcare comms. So let me just cover those off, Peter. Sorry, you're going to ask me something then more specific, I think.
Well, I'm just trying to follow the practicalities of this, Mike. So I get the principles, and and IPG are talking about how they're working inside it, but at your end, so and this is part of what you've been touching on. I mean, you're saying that it's open to everybody. So I guess my question is, how many people are involved in this at the moment? Yeah, and if they are, and that includes freelancers. So let's take that freelance situation. So I'm now looking to go through this process. I don't quite understand who's assessing content out there or activity out there as a point, so on. And one of the questions, let's just use this as a silly example, would one of my webinars count as one CPD point? You know, who assesses that? Who polices it? Who verifies it?
Okay. So
just follow that a little bit, the practicalities.
First of all, the HCA aren't some CPD police that assess stuff. All we are doing and all we have done is to start to say, look, we're professional, we need to start acting together, we need to start thinking together, we need to start having a standard in this. So we as a profession can say, we are, if you work in a profession, you should be doing this. And I stress minimum. The 32 is a minimum, and it's very easy to do 32 hours. As we said, it can come from anywhere. But I think what's important here is take a step back. Whether you're a freelancer, whether you work for an employer, you should be thinking about what you need to be learning or doing a year to maintain your competency. So, for example, if you're working for a UK pharma company, you need to make sure you're regularly up to date with the API code every year as it changes. So there's things like that, but to maintain your competency, and so in terms of and it could be things like, in a world now AI is coming in, you need to start to understand AI, otherwise you cannot maintain doing your job in our sector. That's about maintaining your competency, but also as you want to create and grow, what steps and what learnings and what things you need to develop, maybe skills or educational learning you need to be doing to get to where you want to go, where you're going. So that process, if you're in-house, you're probably doing some form of personal development plan, maybe, or the equivalent of what it's called. That should what determines where you are looking to find this information and what you're doing, what activities you should be doing, what information you should be gathering. All that then the CPD is doing is just recognizing that as you go through that process and to show you're doing enough of it a year to really maintain that competency and to achieve that. So we're not led to police that. And that's why actually the stage comes when you get there, that you show it to your line manager. Your line manager says, yeah, this is right. Because otherwise you could go to, you just go to anything and do reflective learning. And yeah, it's only CPD for you if it's right for you in your career development or your competency. Yeah. So there's clearly that element to it. So as a freelancer, that does give you a slight challenge because you're not in an organization where you're going to be sat down with a manager. But I would suggest a freelancer, you're very aware probably of what you need to maintain, skills you need to maintain to stay competent in your role. So when you go and someone will say, give me some of your business, you go in to talk to them about where AI fits in. So you are in a sense doing your own personal development plans because you are thinking about what you need to do on a yearly basis to learn what sessions of Peter's you need to attend that are particularly relevant to what you need to know as a freelance medical writer, for example. So you're doing that PDD plan. So record that CPD. So at the end of the year, you can get from the HCA that certification. And then next time you go and see your potential client, you can say, actually, by the way, I do keep up regularly. I was certified again last year by the HCA to show I've done my CPD. So, and I suggest as a freelancer, you do have the challenge, you haven't got a manager. I know that. So the practicalities of it, I think as a freelancer, we accept that you will submit that yourself and approve it yourself because you're a freelancer, and that's perfectly acceptable because you don't have a line manager. So that's the only difference for freelancers, just that practical bit. You haven't got a manager, so you need to almost self-certify yourself.
Okay. I mean, personally, I think the freelancers should be taking notice of all this. I mean, I very publicly in the past gone on about how, typically if I ask a bunch of freelancers what training they're doing, and they typically go, well, we're not doing anything because we don't need to, and we'll worry about it when we need to worry about it, sort of thing. And I've certainly tried to champion the idea that freelancers should see themselves as investing in themselves and so on and so forth. So something like this could be quite useful. But just again to clarify or be whatever, the onus isn't on me to go, to get my webinar or whatever activity assessed as being X points. The onus is on an individual to go, I think that's a useful learning point. I'll sit and record it and reflect on it with a manager or with myself as my own boss, and then I will submit that to the HCA. And then, I mean, I'm not being funny, but have you got a bunch of people at the HCA who sit there and are going to have to assess all this stuff? Because there could be quite a lot of work involved in that if lots of people
we're not
doing
assessing.
It.
So that's the key point. We're not assessing. So,
but you are approving that final stage, aren't you? And going, yes, you can.
So because that's been so it's been signed. The process you put it in shows you've done the time. The manager checks it to say that's right, I'm accepting it. It comes to us. What we will do, all we're doing is spot check. So we will randomly pick out ones and check that there's the quality standard across the sector is being matched. That people are putting the right sort of things in, and if there's learnings to take from that, we'll obviously implement that as we go forward. But ultimately, it's not for the HCA to tell you, Peter, what's correct learning for you in your development. All the HCA wants to do is make sure that you are thinking about that you are doing that development, and you are allocating time to that on a yearly basis, so that we know that our profession stays competent and continues to grow and learn. So which makes sense. And again, let's not get too bogged down in this, but there's a couple of questions. I mean, or let me ask a question. If I haven't seen what exactly the logo looks like, sort of thing, but if I found it and I stuck it on my LinkedIn profile or something like that, I mean, it's an obvious question. I mean, I guess you're not policing that; you're just sort of keeping your eyes open for that sort of thing. Yeah. Yes,
because that would be wrong. But how do you police it?
But we will, in a sense, if we spot people with it, and we will sort of keep an eye. If we think someone hasn't done it and hasn't renewed on a yearly basis, and they use the thing, we will pull them up on it. Yes.
I mean, that's always the trouble.
They will get an email from us. They will be contacted.
Yes, drop your email.
A
couple of quick questions.
Let me stress: this is exactly the same as CPD in any sector. We're not
exactly.
The medical profession is exactly the same nowadays. They do post-development plans with whoever they work for, and that they are assessed by their manager or something they've achieved that time. They're not regulated by a body to actually maintain that. It is in a sense a voluntary commitment, but it's an important one, because you wouldn't want to be seen to have not done it, because someone should be there asking questions. If I was a manager and I had someone who wasn't doing CPD and keeping on, and I asked them to, and they agree with what we're doing in the HCA, then it starts to raise questions. Why are you not putting that effort in? Why are you not committed to your role? If you're a freelancer and you go in, and I was taking on, I might say, do you keep up your CPD? Yes. Any way you can show me? Yeah, I've got this. I was approved again.
Okay.
Here's my email.
I get it. Okay, I get it. Just quickly, Anne-Marie said, can you look for, retrospectively, I guess. So after this session, I'd like to go back and see what could be considered for CPD points. So, I mean, again, just a very practical point. As an individual sitting here thinking, well, that's interesting. I'll go back over the last few months and identify. I say, you're just going, yes, that's entirely in the spirit of the thing. Yeah.
Yes. What's important, as I said, on that side, it's about not just that you've done it; it's the fact you've reflected on it. And what you fill in as you are asked to put, what your reflection, constant reflection, and also how that's changed your practice or what's done your practice. So you are forced to put something in there to ensure you've thought about it, and that's the submission then to that thing. It's not just about I was there for an hour. I sat and watched Peter and Mike Dixon wibbling on for an hour. It's what have I taken away from that? What have I got from that? And what am I do future? So the future will be, actually, I'm going to really focus on my CPD, and I'm going to start recording all my things I do that I think are relevant, reflect on them, record them, so that with my 12-month period, I can apply to the HCA for the certification.
Okay, before we start proving this for 2 points rather than 1 point, Caroline, let me just bring you in, and we will have to wrap up over the next minute or two. But Caroline, perhaps maybe you can sort of wrap up a little bit. I mean, in a company like IPG, I think you've already made the point, but let's just make the point again. How valuable is this to retaining staff, but also a direct challenge here? If I'm a principal medical writer or someone coming to IPG Health now, are you really asking questions like, have you got this CPD certification? Are you seeing other people going through this process? Is it becoming part of the process for you recruiting people? Again, it's a bit early days, but where do you sense that one's going to go? And my fundamental question is just as simple as, I presume this is an important part of retaining staff, sort of thing.
Yeah, massively, and that's, you know, it's valuable on that level for sure. But you know, you asked the question, how valuable to us? Well, valuable enough for me to lobby the board to employ Rebecca Douglas to develop and lead these programs. Valuable enough for us to have 11 dedicated development directors to ensure that we are supporting people's continuous professional development in our organisation, and valuable enough that we want to bring another iteration of this about to ensure that we're never finished and we continue to improve the programs for sure. And our promise to that principal medical writer joining the business, well, first of all, we want to test their desire to learn and grow and develop at interview stage. So do they want to, you know, the water's there, we want to lead the horse towards it, but do they want to drink? And that's what we want to test through the interview process. But if the answer is yes, if they're hungry to go again, then we want to make sure that the line management structure, the development structure is there to provide that infrastructure and that development opportunity, so that throughout their career and their pathway with us, that there's learning every step of the way, there's opportunity to do new things, to try new things, to be delegated down, to be empowered to do the job that they've been employed to do. So that's why I call it a learning culture, because it isn't about training programs, it's about a philosophy and an approach to somebody's development. But our promise is there, our commitment is there to make sure that happens for individuals within our business. Yeah.
And simplistically, if I turn up as that principal medical writer and I say, I've already got 46 points, you know, blah, 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 this is going to be a positive. I mean, it's a thing, you know, that's the sort of thing I can add on to my CV. It starts to become a self-fulfilling thing because you see that as positive, and you'll say yes, and we will build on that with you, sort of thing. Yeah,
because it is, okay. It's that badge of honor that I talked about, I guess, that you can demonstrate that you have invested in your own learning. Yeah.
Okay, and I guess just literally the final point, because we're way over time here, but I guess it's gone straight out of my brain. I wanted to throw one final comment. Oh, just the point. I mean, we've talked about this case history. It's interesting, but 11 director level people committed to a program like this is a huge commitment from a company. And let's make the point, IPG is a pretty big company and enables that sort of thing. But I guess, Mike, as a final comment, I mean, we talked about freelancers. You don't have to be that size and have 11 directors not charging their time to accounts and all the rest of that, concentrating on this to fulfill your sort of HCA type certification process. That's just an obvious point. But I think that's, you know, that's a big investment from IPG Health to do this.
And I think it's a really impressive investment, you know, and I think it's a testament to their commitment to their employees. And, you know, I'm sure when it comes to people making decisions on where they go, that's going to make a difference. There are other companies that are not, you know, we're here with IPG, I think, because I think they are pioneering in the sector at the moment in terms of the commitment they're making. There are other companies doing it, and there are other companies will do more of it, because they'll see someone like IPG doing it and they'll think, well, they're doing a great job, we want the best people too, you know, we need to follow on. So but you know, I think it's been great to sit with IPG Health, because I think they're doing an incredible job of supporting their people, encouraging professional development and learning, which I think is good for the sector, but also good for the people that work for IPG Health Comms as well.
Exactly.
Yes,
and we all need leaders.
yeah, and the freelancers, as you say, you know, they'll be going to people like IPG Health looking for work, and if they can turn up there and say, and by the way, I was certified this year, CPD, you know, invested my time, I take the same philosophy as you do for your employees, I assume that would be a positive thing for when they've got two freelancers in front of them.
Yeah,
they want people who are going to work and fit into their team, so that would make sense.
Okay, right. Let's draw the line there, because we're way over time. Okay, right. I'm going to say a huge thank you to you guys for coming along and talking about this. I think it's just a really interesting discussion, and there's loads more we could probably talk about, and lots of individual circumstances and stuff. And we can. But I mean, the basic point is we should all be investing in ourselves, whether that's, you know, me as an individual or within an organisation or whatever. There should be more of this, and as a business, like Mike's saying, we should be investing more and be seen to be doing so. So I think this is all all good stuff. So thank you very much for coming and sharing your experiences. I know I can say for all of you that you're happy to hear from people. LinkedIn is the obvious way. If people are interested in finding out more about this, LinkedIn is an obvious way to reach out. So anybody online today or watching this, please do. If anybody wants to know more about what I'm up to, then obviously it's very easy to get hold of me. Very happy to do so. But for the purpose of the recording, we'll have a couple of minutes, just a quick couple of minutes with everybody online. But for the purpose of the recording, a quick goodbye, a quick wave, and we'll say stay safe and see you soon. Cheers, bye.